Greetings, Flosstube. Today is Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. The only way I actually knew that was because my anniversary is on Friday. I'm not quite back up to snuff with dates yet, but I'm getting there. It is 10:03 a.m. I have a little bit of progress, a couple of finishes, and a lot of haul to share. So I'll just keep the personal chit-chat toward the end of the video so that we can get right into it. So this isn't a terribly long video. I have been stitching like a banshee since the last time we talked. However, I have only been focusing on a few projects, so it might look like I don't have a lot of progress being made, but I actually do. But first I wanted to show you a couple of finishes I've had since the last video. Those of you who remember my story previously about Hello Sunshine and why that became a thing, I finished it and I thought it looked really, really great. I will eventually be able to get this framed and give it to Stephanie, hopefully at some point. She inspired it anyway. If you watched my last video, you know the story behind that. I really like the typography and the way it came out. And I think it looks great on this fabric. So that was one of my finishes. I'm proud of it. And like I said, I'll get it framed and hopefully be able to get it to Stephanie at some point. Now this next finish it's what I call a non-finish finish because it's technically not the finished pattern, but it is for what I'm going to use it for. For those of you who follow Carolyn Manning on her Facebook page, she is putting out an entire series of shooting star patterns in all kinds of different colorways. She's doing a gemstone series colorway that has all kinds of, she's like got an amethyst and a citrine, and I can't remember what all the other colors are that she's put out. And then she put out a sunrise one, sunset. I mean, and the cool thing about her patterns is that yes, they're like quilt blocks, but she changes every one up. So if you want to do the amethyst one, there's a bigger quilt block, and then she includes 4 smaller ones, but it's a completely different set of patterns than, say, the sunset. So it's not like she just took one pattern and made it in all different colorways. She changed up the pattern every time she did it. So the citrine is completely different than the amethyst, which is completely different from the sunset. And she, like I said, she gives you a bigger pattern, which is like, I believe, 181 by 181. And then she includes several smaller versions of the pattern that are 81 squares by 81. And there are 4 different versions of the quilt. So the one I really liked was Sunrise because the colors just drew me in. And I'll show you the colors right here. I had to go to Michael's. It was my first foray out into the real world since all this COVID crap started. And I almost got myself thrown out because I wasn't wearing a mask, but it's a long story and I'm not going to get political. But these are the colors. Blues, purples, that really bright orangey yellow. These are the colors, and I need to bobbinate because I'm trying my best to ruin these skeins of thread. So the colors really drew me in, and I was like, what the heck? What's another new start? This year has been the year of starts for me because I've just been so damn bored on quarantine for the past 3.5 months. And I still don't know when I'm going to get my job back. So, you know, stitching has been a savior for me. So I ordered the Sunrise version of the shooting star, broken star quilt pattern. And I started stitching small number 1. And it was going to be a square, but like a, you know, a quilt square. But I got to this point in stitching it and decided I wanted to use it to make a card. So this is why I call it a non-finished finish. That is not the whole pattern. If you kept stitching, it would turn out to be a square. But I just thought this would make a beautiful centerpiece for a card. And I have the card blanks. So I'm going to make this and send it to a friend of mine in New Mexico. Basically, I thought it reminded me of, I know there's a specific term for it on the New Mexico license plate, the little native pattern that looks like a cross, but this reminded me of that. So I am going to put this into a card. I stitched it on 32 count charm from Picture This Plus, and I got this during their Fat Eighth sale. But I just thought that reminded me of New Mexico, and the lady I'm sending it to has been commenting on how gorgeous the colors are, so she'll probably, unless she watches this video, be surprised when she gets it. But that's a non-finished finish, because it would actually be 81 squares by 81 if you stitch the whole thing. But you can see why I love these colors, because my favorite shade of blue are like the bluey purples that's there in the center. And this one uses 18 and 31, which was in the release of the new colors a few years back, and they're those really pale purples. And I just, beautiful colors. So I will eventually stitch the entire quilt block, probably do all 4 smalls, because I could see it being like 4 quilt blocks in the same piece. But right now, that's where I'm stopping to make that into a card. And my last finish that I've had is a really, really special to me finish. And I will explain that in a minute. But I started this one the Friday before Memorial Day and finished it on Memorial Day. And it is the Liberty Zipper from Bent Creek Patterns. And I added some things to it. It was supposed to have the little stars. I don't know if you can see the stars down on the bottom there or not. But that was all it had. But since I was stitching this on Memorial Day weekend, I went through my stitching stash and I found the eagle and the flag and the button and decided to put those on. And this pin up here is very family history oriented for me. It is my grandfather's quartermaster pin from World War II. Now, I never knew my grandfather. He died when I was about 18 months old, I guess, before my sister was even born. But he served in the Quartermaster Corps under MacArthur in the South Pacific. And so when I stitched this, I decided I was going to get a shadow box made with this particular item, well, with his quartermaster pin, but with this particular item that I inherited when my grandmother passed. Yeah, so my grandmother, she lived to the age of 86. She passed away when I was 24, and she was like a second mom to me. But I never knew Granddaddy. But they were married in 1937, June 19th, 1937, and my mother wasn't born until 10 years later, because he was in occupied Japan after the war, and they were apart for a really long time. And I can't imagine. Now, granted, my grandfather being in the Quartermaster Corps, he was not on the front lines. It wasn't like being married to someone in the infantry or something like that, where you were waiting any day to hear that your husband had died in combat. But still, they were apart for 10 years. So at one point, my grandfather was in New Guinea, and he sent my grandmother this. Now, I'm pretty sure it's not going to show up, so I'll read you what it says. But I inherited this after my grandmother passed away. And then on the back you can see it was made out of a coin. Well, it's engraved and says, New Guinea, to my darling wife, 1944. And then I've got the card that he sent with it, which is on the official, Lieutenant John H. Hood from San Francisco to my grandmother. And he wrote her a love note which is the only written correspondence I have from that particular time in their life. And it says, "To my sweetheart, with all my love, John, hope you like it. Sugar, the plastic base of this is made from the cowling of a Jap plane shot down over New Guinea by the Royal Australian Air Force. The silver made from an Australian shilling by an Aussie soldier." So there's so much history in this beyond just my grandparents' personal history that I don't know. It's kind of overwhelming. So what I plan to do is I plan to have this and the note mounted with this cross stitch. I would like to have something of my father-in-law's. He served in Vietnam, to make it a tribute to the Army service in my family. And get it made into like somehow make it into a shadow box. And then have a memento of my father-in-law's to put in here too, as to commemorate the Army service of two very important men in my life. So yeah, but I think it's so cool that, because I've always called my husband Sugar. I don't know when I even started. I mean, I don't call him Bill. I never call my husband by his name. I mean, I think he would know that if anybody ever replaced me with the body double, or the pod people came and sucked my brains out and took over my body, if he ever heard me call him Bill, he would just know I wasn't me. But yeah, there's this sweet little note, and then this beautiful, I mean, so much history in that. So I'm going to get that made into a shadow box with that cross stitch. But yeah, okay, I'm getting a little emotional here, folks. Sorry about that. So anyway, that was a finish I had actually on Memorial Day that I am going to eventually, I know my framers will do a great job with the shadow box, but yep. So anyway, so those are my finishes. I haven't really finished anything else. I've been starting a lot of things, but not finishing things, which I hope to remedy this week, because this next work in progress I'm going to show you is one that I am making for my husband for our anniversary, which is Friday. And it's 21 years. We're 21 years married, 25 together, actually. But, so I've been stitching on it at night. He's been doing a lot of writing, and I'm not sure. I mean, I don't see how he doesn't know that this is for him, but he asked me at one point, "Oh, what you stitching?" And I was like, "Well, it's a need-to-know basis, and you don't need to know right now," so I probably completely spoiled it. And like I said, he has seen me stitching on it, but not everything can be a surprise, especially when you've been married as long as we have, 21 years. You're not always going to have the ooh-ah-oh surprise on your anniversary. And this is not a big number anniversary anyway. So this is the Carolyn Manning Valentine Pine, which ticks all my boxes. It's a tree, it's hearts. And so I'm stitching it on a piece of fabric that I hand dyed back a couple of years ago when I was trying my hand at ice dyeing fabric. Now these are not the called for colors at all. I just went through my specialty thread stash and picked out a bunch of Valentine-y looking colors. I've got Old World Map by Jody Redesigns, Classic Colorworks Ladybug. I've got Weeks Dye Work Grasshopper for the hearts that are supposed to look like the tree leaves. I've got Weeks Dye Works Hibiscus, House of Embroidery, Wine Glow, which is a really potently dark pink. Weeks Dye Works Lancaster Red, Classic Colorworks Cherry Cobbler, which I think is one of my favorite reds. Weeks Dye Works Indian Summer, which is kind of like trends from a cherry red to almost a blackish red. Weeks Dye Works Blue Coat Red, which it's not the best color, but for shading and something where you're using a lot of pinks and reds, it works. And then for the tree trunk, I've got Gentle Arts Maple Syrup. And then I've got another Jody Redesigns Lovebirds, which is a very pale pastel-y yellow, orange, and pink. And then just for some white for accents, I've got Weeks Dye Work Grits. So I just went through my specialty threads and pulled out a bunch that I thought would work. And this is the result so far. I'm actually almost finished with it. After I finish this video, I'm going to go stitch on it. Let me see if I can put something behind it so that you can see it better without the light shining through it. But that's what I've gotten done. And she actually did several different versions of this, I think. She's done, I've also got her St. Patty's Day pine, which is similar to this, just in all greens. And then I think she just started a Christmas stitch along. It's a Christmas tree, a Christmas pine tree that is made up of hearts and ornaments and snowflakes and baubles and things like that. So, but this one spoke to me. Because you know I have a thing for hearts. And I love my sweetie. And it certainly was an interesting fabric dye. This was just a piece of 14 count Aida. And I dyed it with Plum, Wedgwood Blue, and Wisteria. So it kind of got a little out of control. But I was new to the ice dyeing thing. I think if I had dyed this, if I was going to dye this again, I would probably just use the Plum and Wisteria and leave out the Wedgwood Blue. But hey, you know. But it actually is a lot more defined in person than it will be on the screen here. So this one I'm going to focus for a finish this week. And if I do get a finish by Friday, I'll do a little video, just a little brief shot, to show you what it looks like finished. But I have to admit, if my husband doesn't know, he's not clueless. I didn't marry a dummy. I'm sure he knows this is for him, but he just knows when I say need to know basis only and you don't need to know, he knows not to ask any questions. He's good that way. So another piece that I have been working on is, I'm almost finished with this. I definitely need to hurry up along with this. So this will also be my focused finish for this week, because I need to get this done and out the door for the quilt. This is the Origami Crane. I've just got to put in the bottom wing and then I'll be done with it. I got derailed from getting this finished. Oh, excuse me for hiccuping. I don't know why I never hiccup until I'm on camera. This one I had to put aside because I was waiting to order the thread. I'm using DMC 20, which is this real pretty peach tone. Very neutral and very, I think, peaceful color. But of course I had to wait because so many online needle workshops are backlogged in getting floss orders in, simply because of COVID. Because DMC comes from France, and I'm sure that importing things from Europe right now is difficult. So I will get this done this week. Just like I said, just got to put in the bottom wing and then iron it and get it ready to go with my piece dove to Florida to be made into the quilt for the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Memorial Quilt. So I'm almost done with that. I didn't mean for it to drag on as long as it did. It just kind of got out of control because, you know, waiting for the floss. Now, I had mentioned that I've had like a gajillion starts this year, and probably more starts this year than any other year since I started taking up cross-stitch seriously again about 6 or 7 years ago. This was one of them. Given everything that's going on in the country today, I just felt moved to start this one. It's Summer House Stitchworks, Where Liberty Dwells, There Is My Country. It's part of the Founding Fathers series. It's going to be interesting because the words are stitched over one. Now, I am stitching this on a piece of 32 count Confederate Gray Weeks Dye Works. So stitching those words over one is going to be, it's going to be interesting. But at least I've got decent light and good reading glasses. So I should be okay. And I have stitched over one. I will show you a whip in a minute that I'm stitching over one on certain parts of it. And once you get used to it, it's not bad. It's just on 32 count fabric, it's so small. I don't know. I don't know what possessed me. But anyway, I'm just working on the border. I haven't gotten much of it done. Like I said, my other pieces that I want to finish now are my focus, so I haven't done a lot with this, but I've gotten a little bit of the corner done. I've gotten the corner done all the way over to the little ornamental thing above its head. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably just stitch the top of the border and then put his silhouette in, do all that, and then come down the sides. Although maybe I should just stitch the border first to make sure it all matches up before I put the rest of it in. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'll stitch the whole border first. So yeah, I haven't done much, but like I said, this was not something I was overly concerned with. I am not using the called for thread. It was just black and terracotta DMC. I decided I wanted to make it a little bit more spiffy, so I am using Simply Shaker Black Licorice, and for the word Liberty, I'll use the Weeks Dye Works Lancaster Red. And these were just threads I had in my stash. But I just thought, you know, given that I love patriotic things, give it a little bit of a boost and not just a DMC 310 and 3777. So that's that. That will get worked on eventually. Hopefully by the next time I do a video, I'll have some progress. The next thing, which I had showed you some of last time we chatted, was the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery Chinese Zodiac. Tails everywhere. I have made progress on the second part of the SAL, which was the June part. I mean, the May part. Still got some border to put in. I've got right here in this empty spot, there'll be a Chinese lantern with some gold filament threads. And I just got the link yesterday for the June part of the pattern, because it comes out on the 15th of every month, so I need to go in and print that out. But, you know, this is from April and May. And I would have had it finished, had the second part of the SAL finished, but like I said, I was putting a focus elsewhere, and this one just didn't get picked up. It's a fun stitch. And the colors, I'm stitching this on a piece of 32 count, is it Lugana? Yeah, Lugana, 32 count Lugana even weave from Garibaldi's Needleworks. And this is another piece of fabric I had in my stash forever that I didn't know what I was going to do with it. The color is Sunburst, and I just thought, given how colorful and cheerful this pattern is, that an orange piece of fabric would be perfect, and it's a really great piece of fabric. So, yep, so I haven't made that much progress, but a little more since you saw it last. So there's that. This one is fun. I have a feeling we'll get the next 3 animals in the pattern for this month. And once I get to Friday and I get my anniversary piece finished, I can go back and work on some of these that I've been neglecting. But, and actually I could probably get that finished, probably not today, but tomorrow. And with tomorrow being Wednesday, that would be good. So we'll see, but I will get back to that. Then, this one had been in timeout for a while because I got so damn frustrated with the one tree. This is the A Tree by Itself sampler by Karen Kluba of Rosewood Manor, and this is the one that I've shown you, that I've told you has a lot of meaning to me because my dad worked in the paper industry for 40 years, and trees have always had a very important place in my life. Well, I finally got this tree finished. This little bugger was such a pain in the butt. I don't know why, but I somehow got the inside of it stitched, and then I couldn't get the outside to match up, and I just kept on having to pull it out, and I was like, okay, fine, time out, you're frustrating me. If I'm not having fun, I'm not going to work on it. But there has literally been, this is the 4th page, and I've still got a little bit to do before I can get on to the 5th page. The only thing I did from the 5th page already is just I finished out the words there that you started on the 4th page. But there has literally been a tree on every page of this that has been a pain in the butt that has frustrated me. I mean, it's going to be a thing. But I finally got that frustrated little bugger done. I put the rabbit in, I put the deer in. I started that one diamond-shaped tree there, so this one just has been misbehaving. And the misbehaving ones go in timeout for a while. But I'm sure once I get my mojo back with this one, I'll spend a lot of time on it. I mean, it's a beautiful piece, and I love it. It's just, oh, it can get on my last nerve. Then again, so can pretty much everything these days, but I just try to maintain, and thank God I have cross stitch, because if I didn't, I don't know what I would have been doing these past 3 months other than making myself wackier than I actually am. Alrighty, so what is this one? This one is, oh, this one. This was one that I didn't mean to start. I know you're like, well, how can you not mean to start something? Well, I was trying to exercise restraint, which for me, not happening, but I try. This one, I'm sure I showed you last time that it was part of my stash. The Quaker Diamonds by Karen Kluba. I mean, this ticks all my boxes. It's symmetrical, geometric patterns, gorgeous colors. I don't remember if I showed these last times. These, I think I did. Val Donnie silk threads from Romania. I mean, these are just little balls of gorgeousness. And it's different stitching with these threads, because when you stitch, when you have a normal skein of DMC, which is generally used, it has, well, this piece only has three separate strands because I've been using it. But DMC is a 6-stranded floss, and you take out one strand at a time, and then you double it, and you use the loop method to secure your fabric, meaning you thread your needle, and when you put your first stitch in, you go through the loop, and that secures it without having a knot. So you're only using 1/6 of a strand of DMC when you stitch with DMC. But when you stitch with Val Donnie, you're using the entire strand. This is a 3-stranded floss, and you use the entire bit of it. And what you do is, when I thread the needle and I start stitching, I just kind of work the tail underneath the stitches as I go so that it doesn't unravel. But the kicker to this one comes in when you are stitching over one. And you do that for the lowercase letters. It is an alphabet sampler, and I'll show you my progress here. This is such a beautiful piece. I'm just loving this one so much. I haven't done a lot with this one either, because this one did get put in timeout a little while ago. I was hoping to get this diamond, the outer shell of this diamond finished, but trying to stitch the circles to make the diamond was such a pain in the posterior that I just couldn't. I had to put that aside for a while. But look at these colors. They're just gorgeous. And the thing that I think is the most impressive is, like, this outer diamond looks like it's 2 or 3 different colors, but it's just one thread. The variegation in these threads are gorgeous. But can you see those tiny little lowercase letters? That is stitched over one, and that is the most fiddly, insane, small thing I have ever stitched. Now, I wasn't exactly a stranger to over one stitching when I started this, because when I did the piece that I made for Stephanie last year, there was some over one stitching for, like, the eye on the penguin and the face of the lemur, which is why the lemur was... We're not going to talk about the lemur. But, so I wasn't entirely a stranger to stitching over one. And in my previous little snippet video where I showed this when I started it, I explained what over one stitching means on linen. It's just so fiddly. I mean, it's okay, but when you're stitching over one, you actually separate out the floss and you just use the one strand to do the... It's going to be fiddly, but it's going to be really beautiful, and I am so impressed with the thread. I mean, this is the most beautiful thread I've ever used. And I'm stitching it on the 32 count Picture This Plus Moon Glow, I believe is the fabric. It's whatever the called for fabric is, because I ordered the kit. I think it's Moon Glow. It's kind of a pale brownish yellow, which doesn't, the description I just gave you does not sound nice, but that is, it's very lovely. It's just hard to describe the color of the fabric, and the light doesn't exactly pick it up and show it the way it looks here in my living room. But yes, I just absolutely loved, I couldn't resist it. I kept looking at the box of threads and I was like, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. So the diamond that stalled me out is this one here. It's got like flowers in the circle. It's like a circular diamond. It's hard to describe, but that one is so pretty. It'll be gorgeous when I finish it, but for some reason I just kept looking at the pattern and I was off just enough that it was going to throw the whole thing off. And when you're stitching symmetrical and geometric shapes, you can't be off because it won't look like what it's supposed to look like. So yeah, that was just, I was just like, okay, you got to go away for a little while. And this is my bag of the month from Giron Tote and Bags. Can't decide if it's supposed to look like owls or moths. It's pretty though. And Giron is, well, Gary is part of the Sunshine Stitchers on Flosstube. It's him, Sheila, and EJ, and he and his husband Ronnie have this bag making business. And I believe Ronnie's really the one who makes the bags, but they're gorgeous. I'm in the Bag of the Month Club, but since there's a waiting list, I think after my birthday in August, I want the bag to corresponds with my birthday month. But after that, I think I'm going to bow out so that other people can have a chance, because the bags are really beautiful. Here's another Giron bag. I mean, come on. How could I not? How could I not? Now, I suppose you already know who is in this one. My girl, the Queen of Freedom. I have actually, even though when I look at the pattern it doesn't seem like I've accomplished much, I've actually gotten quite a bit more done on her since the last time I showed you. I am making progress with her dress, with the lower quadrant of her dress. I have gotten, let's see, I stitched this gray, I started putting in the white here, I'm filling in the red. Got more white to fill in there, but she's coming along. And my favorite part so far, this is the lower hem of her dress. I adore that. There's like 4 different shades of blue in that, including the stitches that are right around the edge that look almost black. It's like 930 something, and it's like a really bluey black. That is my favorite part that I've stitched so far, the star that's on the hem of her. I love that Wedgwood blue color. So yeah, she's got quite a way to go. She's gonna be big. This is the Fabric Flair We the People preamble fabric. So yeah, she's coming along nicely, and I can spend hours and hours a day stitching just on her, which honestly is why I haven't made a lot of progress. You know, I figure I can either make a lot of progress on one piece or a little progress on a bunch of pieces, but really she's stolen the spotlight. So, and when I look at the pattern, I realize I haven't done all that much, because the part that I just showed you is this part of her dress here, and then that first star is the very far edge of the hem of her dress. But still, I mean, I've got a hell of a lot more to do, but I'm still making progress. And I like having the fill stitch to do for when Bill and I are watching Heart to Heart or something and I'm not paying attention to counting. So then I can just say, okay, this is all white, and just, which is why I tend to stitch borders, so that then I can just go back and fill in. It works pretty well that way. So that's really all that I've made progress on lately. So the last little bit, actually the last quite big bit, is my haul. So if you're not interested in haul videos for whatever reason, now would be a good time to turn the video off. It is going to be a bit longer, but if you love haul, by all means stay. You're going to be quite enabled, I hope. This is in no particular order of when I bought this stuff. It's been, I've gotten a lot of it in between now and the last video, and some of it I had ordered back before the quarantine started, and then of course with the slow postal service and whatnot, you know, it didn't all come when it was supposed to. So I guess that's my way of saying don't judge me by the amount of this haul, because I didn't buy it all at once. Now my most recent haul I actually got in the mail today. Gary, the aforementioned Gary of Giron Tote Bags, was cleaning out his stash, and he was selling some of it on his Facebook page, and I was like, yeah, you know, why not? I mean, like, I don't have enough stitching to occupy my mind. So, the first thing I found of his that is absolutely adorable, and this won't take very long, this is in the tradition of the Liberty zipper. This is by Bent Creek, and it's called Clover of Clovers. Oh, of course. Go away. Or leave a message. I'll call you back on the 5th of never. This is the one thing I hate about being home 8 hours a day when I should be working, is the phone rings about 10 times, at least. And it starts earlier than this. It's what, almost 11 now? It starts at like 8:30. I'm usually up at 6 anyway, but it's a pain in the butt. Well, it's important to leave a message. It never is, though. Anyway, what was I trying to say before? Oh, they didn't even leave a message. They hung up. Okay, well, anyway. The only reason I still have a landline is because I don't want everybody to have my cell phone number. Only a select few people in my life have my cell phone. I don't want to be that accessible, so I still have a landline, but 99% of the calls are all garbage that I don't want anyway. Alright, so anyway, where was I? This is called Clover of Clovers, and like the zipper, like the Liberty zipper, it comes with all the threads and the burlap fabric, and the buttons, but I just thought he was cute. And the thing I like about these Bent Creek kits is they stitch up fast. I mean, I started the Liberty zipper on the Friday before Memorial Day, stitched on it a little bit Saturday, and stitched a little bit Sunday, and within a half hour stitching on Monday, on Memorial Day, I was done with it. So these are cute, and he didn't want it anymore, so I bought it from him. Now, this next pattern I bought has potential to be a huge, huge rabbit hole for me. Because there are 12. There are monthly patterns. This was a monthly pattern kit, a monthly pattern series called the Songbird's Garden series. I just know that this is going to be a thing. But this is the Songbird Garden series number 11, Autumn Dream, Tufted Titmouse, and Bittersweet. Is that not, for someone who's an avid bird watcher, is that not the most beautiful pattern? And those colors. I'm not much one for fall stitching. I definitely don't do Halloween stitching. Halloween's never been a big deal for me because I don't have kids. I don't do a lot of fall stitching. Fall is my least favorite. If it weren't for college football, I would absolutely despise the fall. But, yeah, I mean, the beautiful colors. And I've seen the others in the series. There's a cardinal that I would just die to stitch. They all have a little house and a specific flower that's specific to the season or the month. I know that's going to become a thing, but it's just the pattern, and it uses Weeks Dye Works thread, which I don't have all the colors it calls for, so that's good. I cannot be enabled to start it anytime soon. And I think it's a good thing I don't generally buy kitted versions of cross stitch, because when I know that I have the fabric and all the threads, it's like, okay, I'm going to start it. You've got 1,700 other whips. Why are you starting a new one? So yeah, with cases like this where it's just the pattern, that's much better prospect for me. So I am about to show you things that are going to wreck that. As I mentioned, I fell in love with the Val Donnie Threads when I started stitching the Quaker Diamonds. So this is a sampler, Vintage Hues sampler pack of Val Donnies. I don't know what I'll use them for, but then again, I have a bunch of specialty threads that I haven't had any specific plan for. These are a lot of neutrals. There's some tans and some brownish blacks, so those could come in handy for anything that I decide I'm going to switch up the threads for. The only thing with Val Donnie is because it's a 3-stranded thread and you use that whole strand, you should probably never stitch anything above 32 stitch on anything above 32 count with it. 36, 40, I think there's a 52 count fabric, which you might as well not even have holes in it as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, these are gorgeous. Just all kinds of luscious, lovely variegated threads from Romania, the hand-dyed silks. So don't know what I'm going to use them for, but it's good to have stuff like that, because I've been changing out threads a lot lately in my stuff that I'm working on. Now, this one I have been so stinking tempted to start, and I'm so damn grateful. I don't have a big enough piece of fabric, don't have the threads or anything, because in this time that we're living in now, she's so appropriate, but I don't have the supplies, and I don't want them anytime soon. This is Lady Justice, last year's Mirabilia release. Is she not amazing? She's got the scales, she's blindfolded. Lady Justice. And I have been so tempted to buy the stuff to start her. No, I can't right now because I'm doing Queen of Freedom, but I picture someday having Lady Justice, Queen of Freedom, and Lady of the Flag on my wall all together as a trio. She is amazing, and in this day and age, I'm very, very tempted, but thank God I've just got the pattern. Just got the pattern. I don't need the fabric. I don't need the threads and beads, because no. So now this piece, these couple of things here, these were just some stash enhancement. This is Heartstring Samplery. I have never stitched a piece of theirs, but it's the Magical Elixir series, part 5, Coffee Drinker's Confession. I'm going to stitch this one for my kitchen. It's so neat. I don't have a problem with coffee. I'll have a problem without coffee. Very, very pretty. It's Weeks Dye Works Gentle Arts threads. So there is a DMC conversion. I don't know if I would do the DMC conversion or not. It would just depend on how anxious I was to start this, because I do have fabric in my stash that would be perfect for this, like a neutral brown for the coffee beans and everything, but I just love it. This was in March 2019. This was probably last year's market pattern that debuted at Nashville Market. I don't know that for certain, but its original release date was March 2019, so I'm assuming this was a Nashville Market release from last year, but it's perfect. I don't have a problem with coffee. I have a problem without coffee. And there are days when I don't have any Kona coffee in my stash and no milk in the fridge where I refuse to drink coffee, because Kona is the only coffee I will drink black without milk. Because I drink my coffee, milk, no sugar. let me just tell you, my husband is a saint to put up with me on those rare days. In fact, when he sees that the milk carton is almost empty, he'll be like, I'll save that for you for tomorrow for your coffee. Like, thank you. Now, this book I bought, I had been wanting some different alphabets, because sometimes I write things on my cross stitch or I sign them in a certain way. And this is the Leisure Arts 136 Alphabets Galore book. Just all kind of different fonts that I can write things with, uppercase and lowercase. And this is good to just have in your stash for those times, like when I finish the sampler I'm doing for my goddaughter. I'll put her name on it, and I'll use one of the fonts from here. And it's just nice to have a different array of cross-stitch alphabets. So I bought that just to, you know, add to my capacity to stitch. And this one I didn't really need, but I want to eventually do it for my niece and nephew for Christmas. This is the Nutcracker Tree by Joe Gattenby of X's and O's, and I will not stitch it in black though. It needs color, but it's all the characters like the Cossack dancers and the Rat King and, you know, the Sugar Plum Fairy and all that from the Nutcracker. And I think it would look good in a variegated, if I could find if Val Donnie has a Christmas variegated floss, but if they don't, there's other variegated flosses out there, but I won't stitch it in black. That just needs color. I mean, it's the Nutcracker. It's Christmas for garden seeds. That needs, so yeah. That one I bought just because, you know, my niece and nephew are totally into the Nutcracker. Now this is one of my more recent acquisitions. This one I got. I'm going to stitch it on some perforated paper for a good friend of mine who he goes back in the fountain pen community a way. He used to do a lot of fountain pen reviews, and of course part of his review was writing with the pen, and he would always write the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So this one is called the Favorite Font Sampler by Plum Street Samplers. And it's going to be a quick stitch because it's mostly just the words. Words are very quick to stitch. So I thought of him and his wife when I saw it. And so I will stitch it for them. It's only 3 colors. It's 167, 611, and 3011. Drab brown, khaki green, and yellow beige, very dark. So I'm sure I've got those in my stash. But I just thought that would be cute to stitch on perforated paper. And it says this sentence stitched in this sampler was first used by the Michigan School Moderator in 1885. Because it contains every letter in the alphabet, it was considered useful for writing and typing practice. And that's why he always used it in his videos when he would show how the fountain pens wrote. So that'll be a quick stitch. That one won't take long at all. Now, these others, I got another Mirabilia, and I made the mistake of kitting this one up, although I really have no desire to start it anytime soon. Mirabilias are just so stinking beautiful with all the colors. This one was also from last year. This one is called Winter Love. She's a winter fairy. Look at those blues in her wings. I have never stitched one of the Mirabilia fairies. But look at that tree behind her, that big spruce tree. That was really what drew me in, that and the color of her wings. I'm not as big a fan of all the fluiness down below that says winter, but the colors in that tree and the purples and the blues in that just really, I was like, oh shit, whatever. So I kitted it up. I got the fabric and I got most of the threads and beads. There are a few skeins of thread missing because, like I said, there's been such a run on online cross-stitch stores that a lot of certain thread colors are out. But I got all the beads. I got the Caron Water Lilies, which are the silk threads. I mean, that's the thing about these, is that they're such, the colors, You know, they do use a lot of DMC, but they use a lot of specialty thread too. I mean, look at this color. This is Water Lilies Pine Forest. Is that not like the most to die for? I mean, it's showing up more blue in the light, but it's like a teal, like a spruce blue, like a teal bluey green. See, that's what sucks me in. And then you look at the beads. I mean, look at these. This is just inhuman how cool this is going to look. Now, I wouldn't bead anything until the very end, so it would take the next 6 years before you would see any of the beads on this. But look at those beads, the teal and the blue. Can you even see them in this light? Yeah. She's got to stop. Nora Corbett, and see, it's funny because she kind of double dips because Mirabilia is her pattern company, but she also designs under her own name. She's got to stop. She's just got to stop. So I'm much more tempted by this than I am by Lady Justice right now, only because I've got the fabric and, yeah, well, she better not be getting started anytime soon. Then I saw this, and this one, it's a Jeanette Douglas design. It's got some specialty stitches, which I thought would be kind of cool to just try. Because for the longest time, I was scared to death to try anything other than just a cross stitch. You know, all these Smyrna stitches and all these different kinds of stitches just seemed frightening, like so far above my level. But this year, I've gone into my 28th year of stitching because my mother taught me how to stitch back in the summer of '92. So going on 30 years, I feel like I shouldn't be afraid to try new things because what's the worst that can happen? I have to pull it out and do it again. So this is a Christmas sampler from Jeanette Douglas. And there are a bunch of specialty stitches in it, but I'm just eventually at some point going to go for it. I mean, why not? Why be afraid of something? Why? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I try a stitch and it looks wonky and I pull it out and I try it again. I mean, I never will know the specialty stitches if I'm not willing to try them. So, yeah, so I bought that. I thought that was kind of cool. Plus, I love Christmas stitching. It's funny, I don't do a lot of holiday stitching as far as, like, you know, Halloween and things like that, but I do love Christmas stitching. I think it's because it's so nostalgic and it brings you right back to your childhood. So, this one I ordered from Sassy Jacks because it was one of those times when I was ordering thread and I didn't feel like paying $10 postage on $2 worth of thread. This is one that I have always just felt like if I could do this, then I really will have accomplished something in my stitching. Chatelaine Designs are known for being very detail-oriented, specialty stitch heavy, some 1/1 stitching. They were designed by Martina Rosenberg, and she passed away unexpectedly, I think 2 or 3 years ago. It may have been a little longer than that, but I don't think so. And her family kept the patterns in print to honor her memory. And this one is the Hawaii Garden Mandala, which Hawaii has a special place in my heart with college football. That's too long a story to go into. But I just cannot, I can't, let me take this out of the plastic. You're not going to see the details anyway because, but this would just be the most, if I can ever someday finish this, stitch it and finish it, this would be like the pinnacle of my stitching. It would never get, even with all the Mirabilias and everything I have and the Rosewood Manors, it would never get any better than that. I mean, if I was ever actually able to stitch that, that would be like the pinnacle of my stitching. I love this part, the red and black with the lava from the volcano. And the palm trees, and I mean, if I could stitch that, That would be the pinnacle. That would just be it. That would just be like, okay, I'm never stitching another thing ever again because it's just not going to ever get any better than that. So this has Algerian eyelets, diamond eyelets, woven triangles. So yeah, this may not ever be done, but it's something that if I did do it, I would feel like I had actually really seriously accomplished something. And then, to top it all off, because I don't have enough Karen Kluba patterns, because, you know, I mean, a tree by itself isn't big enough, I had to order some of her patterns. And I think sometimes when I see that these patterns aren't going to be reprinted, I buy them to have them in my stash in case someday I want to do them. And I do have an affinity for what is called sable, stash acquired beyond life expectancy. And the sad thing is I don't know anybody who stitches, so it's not like I can leave this stuff in my will to, you know. So, there's this one. Now, I do not have an affinity for pink, which when I show you this one, you're going to be like, oh, please, stop it with the pink hate, because you know you love it or you wouldn't buy these patterns. But what I love about this pattern is not the colors, it's the shapes. This one is called In a Garden Grew, and it's from 2008. And it's got a quote by Henry Ward Beecher. Flowers are the sweetest things God ever made and forgot to put a soul into. And my favorite part of this pattern is the trellis. That is so epically awesome. And I love the little fox over here. And I love, which flower is it? I love that sunflower. So yeah, it's got a lot of pink, but that's not why I like the pattern. Now the only thing that's the good thing as to why I didn't totally kit this up, I did buy the fabric. It's 32 count ale. I did get the fabric to go with it, the recommended fabric. This entire list here, this whole thing here, is all the different colors. Now granted, they're DMC, and I probably have most of these colors in my thread stash, but no. I'm not going to be able to afford to buy enough thread right now to do this. So, good thing. See, there is method in my madness. If I don't completely kit something up, I won't start it right away. Because I'm not going to go stash diving for all that floss right now. Just no. And yet another piece that is pink that I'm not going to say I like pink because I don't, but I like patterns that are stitched in pink, I guess. I like the geometry of this one. We'll go with that. This is Creation 2 by Karen Kluba, which was from this was from last year. This is a relatively new. Now this one, if I had the fabric, I could kit up because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's only 16 skeins of thread that you need for this. I love that big ass diamond in the middle, pardon my French. And I really, really love, I like the concept of circular diamonds, like from the other piece. And I even really like the vine here that has the little alphabet in it. But there's nothing, no specialty stitches, nothing, just straight cross stitch. Oops, let me get that. I'm still not used to using the iPad here. So yeah. I like the shapes of it. It's not the colors that drew me to that one, it was the shapes. Now, this next one, y'all just going to be like, yeah, duh, of course we'll do this one. This needs no introduction. This is a Karen Kluba from 2008. Lots of backstitching in this one, but backstitching is worth it if it brings out details. Season of the Trees. Of course, y'all know how much I love trees. I almost got into forest grew, but I kind of liked the garden grew. I may eventually break down and buy in a forest grew, but I'm doing a tree by itself, so I figured I didn't need And a Forest Grew. Season of the Trees. Yeah, trees. If you had to pin me down to specific themes I like to stitch, it would be Quaker motifs and trees. And speaking of, I also bought the fabric for this one, but I don't have the colors for this one. Although there's not that many. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's only 20 colors in this. So this wouldn't be, I'm sure I could probably grab most of these from my thread stash. This is stitched on 32 count rosewood, which is kind of a mauve-y purple. Speaking of trees, seasonal crabapple trees. Now, y'all know trees, but also birds. I mean, how could I not? And I like that border. I don't know. I think that border is really neat. Like, it makes it look lacy, like it's a doily or something. I think the borders are really cool. And this is actually technically one of the smaller ones that Karen Kluba has ever designed. It's only 187 by 187, so it's actually rather small. And I got the fabric, but like I said, I don't need to be starting that anytime soon. And the only other thing I bought was a fat quarter of 32 count Confederate Gray Weeks Dye Works, which I don't know why they call it gray. It's brown. It's a neutral brown. But this is what I'm stitching the Ben Franklin on. So, that's pretty much it for the cross stitch, which is a good thing because I just passed an hour-long video. I hope I haven't bored you to tears. You know, my life has been going pretty good. I actually got my hair cut, as you can see. The perm is dead, but I got my hair cut on the 28th. My husband and I both did. We had our appointments. It had to be the most bizarre haircut I've ever had, because usually I go for a shampoo and a cut. I've never had a dry spray cut. I mean, my husband does that all the time, and I think that's more of a man thing. I don't know, not trying to sound sexist, but I don't think men usually get their hair washed when they go in, but I always get a shampoo and a cut. But I didn't get my hair cut by my regular stylist because she's still only back to working on a temporary basis. She doesn't need to work because she's married to a man who's independently wealthy, but she loves what she does, and she has always loved helping women feel their best and helping women bring the best out in their hair, whether it was coloring hair, perming hair, whatever. But she has lupus. So with all this COVID-19 crap going on, she's only back on a limited schedule. And I can't say I blame her. With an immune disorder, you know, you don't want to take any chances. So I went to the salon that's right in the center of town here, and they did it. Heather did a great job. My perm is dead, but I should have already had a new perm. But of course, right now, the only thing you can get done is a haircut. So my husband and I both felt so much better after the haircuts. You know, he's been working. He's been working through the whole thing. Now, most times he's been the only person in the building, which keeps him safe. But as I've mentioned in other videos, he is the football videographer for the University of Massachusetts. And everything got completely screwed all to hell with college sports in general, and football in particular. And so, you know, being the videographer, he doesn't have the ability to work from home because when he has to put things into the server, he can't connect to the server from his laptop that he brings home with him, so he has to be in the office. So he was furloughed the first week of the month. He was furloughed, and it was only for a week. What happened was the three main professional unions on campus got together, and instead of laying off workers for an undeterminate amount of time, they worked with the university and said, well, what if we lay off all these workers for just a week at a time? Would that save the university the same amount of money? You know, laying off a larger group of people for a week at a time as opposed to just a few specific groups of people for a long term would it average out to the same thing. And the university came to the conclusion that it would. So the first week in June, my husband had the full week off. He we did a couple things. We went up to Vermont that Tuesday, the 2nd. Vermont's actually, believe it or not, a lot more open than we are here in Massachusetts. I was able to do a little shopping up there, and you know, it was nice to get away, just get away from the four walls. And then that Thursday, the 4th, we went down to Rhode Island, and the beaches opened that day, so we went to Easton's Beach in Newport. It was weird, but it was nice. I mean, you had to social distance, and of course, when you went to the bathroom, you were supposed to wear your mask, and only 4 women in the bathroom at a time, and you had to wait if you had to wait outside, and you know, like, excuse me, you know, 1 in, 1 out type thing. I didn't follow that. I was like, come on. First of all, in the bathroom, the germs you have to be worried about are not the ones coming out of your face, first of all. And second of all, you know, it's just bogus. So I just went on, and nobody was really following the rules. There were very few people even wearing masks. But we were social distancing. I mean, we weren't sitting right on top of each other. So to me, if you're social distancing, I don't understand why the mask has to be a thing in the first place. But, or if you're wearing a mask, why you have to social distance. But I don't want to get off on that rant. So we went to the beach on the 4th, which was nice. You know, and we've had more time together this year simply because COVID brought everything to a screeching halt. There was no spring practice, no spring game. I know it was a big disconnect for my husband, but I've been trying to find the silver lining in the cloud of this whole year. And to me, the one massive silver lining is that I've had more time with him. So that's always a good thing. Because, you know, with college football, everyone thinks it's just from September to November, and if you're lucky, the playoffs or the bowl games. But it really, over the years, has gotten to be a year-round job. You never stop recruiting, you know, you never stop watching film. You're always looking for that one edge to give you the edge over your opponents. So I think it's been good for Bill to have some downtime, but I know it's driving him crazy. We still don't know what's going on. There's a team meeting here. Well, it's after 11 now. It's going on now. They were doing a team meeting via Zoom, and they were going to lay out the plans for the kids to return, which I'm pretty sure means we have to cancel our vacation plans. We go to Hilton Head the week of the 4th of July and so the way the calendar worked out, it was going to be the last week in June that we were there, come home on the 4th, just the way the calendar worked out. But the good thing is with COVID, the places that, you know, because we make our reservations as soon as we can in the fall for the following summer. You know, they have to set the rates for the rentals and everything, and you have to wait. So we have our vacation that week, and then maybe October is when we set up for the next year. And we had our plans on the books since then to go. And we had made our last payment. But the good thing is they were expecting people to have to cancel because of the pandemic. So we will get a credit towards our rental next year. And we can get a credit for our airfare. We fly Delta to Charleston. And even if we had been able to go, the rates were so stinking low. The only reason we didn't fly to Savannah is because it's a tiny little airport. There's only a few flights, and I didn't feel like having to get up and be on a flight at 5 a.m. So we were going to fly to Charleston and then just drive. It's not a long drive from Charleston to Hilton Head. So while I'm disappointed, I'm not surprised. I would have been much more surprised if we had actually gotten our vacation off this year, just given everything that's going on. So we'll get the credit for the rental and for the airfare for next year. And, you know, hopefully things will be normal next year and we'll be able to go. But, you know, it's just so weird. I haven't heard any word from my temp agency about when my job is going to start back up. For those of you who didn't know, I was temping for the Department of Revenue and the child support in the legal system for child support. And I was basically working for the attorneys who represent the state. We don't represent either custodial or non-custodial parent. We go to court every week for block hearings and basically say, okay, here is what the situation is. Here's what the state says the child support amount should be. And then it's up to the custodial and non-custodial parent to argue their case in front of the judge and say, okay, well, I just lost my job, I can't afford to pay this amount of child support, or my ex-husband just got a job and he's earning more money than he was, so child support should go up, that kind of thing. And I was working with the attorneys who just go in and say, well, this is what the state says should happen. And we closed down at the same time everything else started closing down, but the problem is we don't know when the probate courts will reopen. Of course, the superior and trial courts have to reopen first because, you got criminal cases that are on hold and things like that, and people who were sequestered as parts of criminal juries that have been sequestered, without even having any clue when they're going to be done with the trials. So naturally, the trial courts will have to open first. And when I think about it, the way the probate court hearing blocks worked, they're going to have to really do some serious work to, if these laws are actually worth it. Well, they're not laws, they're executive orders. It's not a law, which is one thing that really bugs me about the whole thing. As a political science major, I could argue that an executive order is not a law, but that's not why you're here. But, when I think about it, the courtroom, there were two probate court rooms, but they would use one or the other. So people would always congregate in one corner of the building. They would have to come into the probate office to register to let the attorneys know they were there. So there was a lot of milling around, no social distancing, even among the attorneys, because the attorneys had their cubicles there, but it was just stacked up back to back. So if they really need to implement the social distancing and all that, it's going to take a while for the court to figure out how to make it work, to come back. So I have no idea when I'm going to get back to work. I am drawing unemployment, and I'm actually drawing more unemployment than I was actually earning than the weekly paycheck I was getting, which is depressing. But, but the federal unemployment runs out at the end of July, and the state unemployment was piddly. It was based on what I had earned. I've literally worked 3 weeks the entire year because I thought I had a potential temp to hire job lined up, and it fell through because I asked for too much money. But the law firm I was going to go to work for had 4 attorneys with 700 active cases, and they expected me to be their sole paralegal and office manage the 2 legal secretaries. And then I heard from someone in the know that they're kind of a law firm with a scuzzy reputation, so it's not a bad thing that fell through. But then when I was trying to get everything situated for this assignment with the DOR, of course I had to do all the background checks, which also included IRS background checks, because when you work in finance, you can't be someone who doesn't pay their taxes. So that took about a month. So by the time I got my job, I had literally worked 3 weeks before all this crap came down. And it's all bogus anyway, but I'm just ready to go back to work. But I haven't heard anything yet. So in the meantime, I'm just going to keep stitching and journaling and getting outside and taking walks and just trying to, maintain. It's getting on my last nerve now. But it's got to end at some point, right? We can't stay locked in our homes forever. But anyway, that's where we are now, and I hope you enjoyed this video. It's over an hour now, so I think I will sign off. And until next time, I wish you happy stitching and a happy life, and I will see you soon.